breakfast?
No.
We have cereal.
Okay.
We have many much kinds of cereal. Are you interested at all in cereal?
Many much kinds of cereal?
Many much.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many.
Does anybody here say Manny?
Man?
Well, how's the word spelled?
M-A-E-M.
M-A-E-M?
Yeah.
Mame?
Yep.
I don't think that's how it's spelled.
Man.
I'm so ready. Let's do this. You guys not gonna have cereal? Hey. Alright. Let's do it. It's gonna be a very short service. I don't have a lot of words in this tank. It's a very small tank today.
Wherever you leave off, I can finish.
Cool.
With a guitar solo. Solo. Dang. Solo. Okay. From Tim Hawkins.
Oh. Okay.
He's playing a song. He's all like, solo. Okay. But like the entire song.
That's a joke.
The entire song is a solo.
Yeah.
So like solo. Okay.
Oh, there's someone else coming? Is the stepping sporadic? It wasn't sporadic. I knew it.
What?
I knew it.
Who's sporadic?
Yeah.
Oh.
Did you hear the bell?
Yeah, it was like relatively even pace, but a little bit quick. So I figured it was you. Alright. Yes, Jean. Careful with that. It's like a weapon. She's already drawn on her hood.
What is it? Oh, on Expo Market.
She did the thing to me without even knowing it was a thing. She walked up and did this to my leg. I was like, what did you do? Oh, okay. Didn't even know that was a thing. Don't draw on clothes. Yes, Jean.
Are you losing your voice?
Lost. I'm getting it back.
Oh. He's been sick for a long time.
No, I actually haven't. I've only been sick since Sunday.
It is Sunday. Wait, you got sick this morning?
No. How would I already be getting it back?
Very quick sickness.
Yeah. Last
It
Sunday.
truly is the Passover sickness.
Alright. Well, there's officially 3 of you, so I'm going to use a microphone. You guys get to hear my smoky voice. Amplify.
You gonna do some smooth jazz now?
While you guys read, I'm going to eat food, so I won't eat the microphone because that'd be disgusting. You get to read first. We're going to be studying Genesis 12 today.
You sound like a completely different person.
Yeah. It's because I have one register. This is like a falsetto, except it's the opposite.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a bad microphone. It sounds
Because when you do a falsetto, you straighten out all the harmonics in your vocal cords, so you just have one note coming out, but it's usually like the highest note.
Oh, like when you drink helium?
Yeah, a little, not really, no. There's still harmonics in helium. It's just completely different harmonics.
One time I saw this guy who like sang an entire worship song, but like every line afterwards he would have some helium, so the entire song was like super high pitched.
I humbly submit it ceases to be a worship song when you're only singing it to be funny.
Oh no.
Alright, you get to read first.
It sounds like you're depressed.
I'm not. I'm really excited to not be stuck at home.
Either you're depressed or you have a really bad microphone.
We'll go with that one.
It would be funny if you were all like Genesis 20.
Are you
Like the
eating
entire
pie?
It's quiche. It's like pie for breakfast.
The Lord had said
Those M&M's in it?
Shh. He's reading.
Oh, sorry.
the Lord had said to Abram, leave your native country, your relatives, and your father's family, and go to the land that I'll show you. I'll make you into a great nation. I'll you and make you famous, and you will be a blessing to others. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who treat you with contempt. All the families on earth will be blessed through you.
So last week, we were looking at chapter 11. We saw Abram leave Ur and go to Haran with his dad, Terah. We'll see this week in the next set of verses that he leaves Haran. But while he's there, and he's already left Ur, like most of his extended family behind, now God's saying, okay, not good enough, I want more. I want you to leave behind everyone, even your dad. And he's lived with his dad his whole life. That's exceptionally hot. So, God's asking him to leave behind all of his comfort, go somewhere he's never been. And at this point, in these verses, he doesn't even tell him where to go. He literally just says, I want you to leave. And when you leave, then I will show you where you're going.
He's probably scared that he's going to tell everybody, so he wants him to leave.
Well, there's a certain amount of, if I tell you where you're going, you can decide if you want to go based on where you're going. And if I don't tell you where you're going, you have to decide if you want to go based on me, who's taking you. Right? Like if I tell you we're going to Disneyland, aren't you a little more excited to go? And it doesn't really matter who's taking you to Disneyland. You're like, I'll go with my best friend, I'll go with my parents,
I'll go with the homeless dude.
I'll go with a group from church, like I don't care. But if we don't tell you where you're going, we're going on a trip. Then it really matters who you're going with.
Yeah, because if my dad said we're going on a trip, I would think hike or bike ride, and I would be like, I'm out. But if my grandma said we're going on a trip, I would go because she probably wants to go like to Disneyland or something.
See how this works? So God says we're just going to go. Abram has to decide now based on God. Do I trust God? Do I want to hang with God? Do I want God to be like my only companion on a trip to somewhere or not? He doesn't get to decide based on the place.
I mean,
That's big.
it's kind of, wait, is God talking to him or
Yeah.
as a person?
He's not standing there yet.
I,
That actually happens later. Abram gets to just stand there and talk to God face to face, but it's Jesus at that point. Jesus comes in a living on earth as a man, born as a baby, dying on the cross. He comes as a human shape. Okay, so he looks human-ish.
yeah, but that's kind of
But that's not this yet. Right now, this is a voice.
That's kind of weird because it's like, come on a trip, says the voice in my head.
Yes, that is exactly right. So it's all down to whether Abram trusts that this voice is legit. This voice is the voice of God. If he doesn't trust, why the heck would he do this?
He's like,
Do not do this.
let's go on a trip. He's like, okay, voice in my head, let's go on a trip.
I'm going to go on a trip with my schizophrenia.
You're saying what?
Schizophrenia. That's like a mental disorder where you have multiple personalities.
Now you sound like a science teacher with the voice and everything.
Don't most science teachers have a voice?
I mean, like that voice.
Okay. The voice didn't change that much. It's kind of the same voice. Alright, anyways, let's read the next set of verses.
So Abram departed as the Lord has instructed, and Lot went with him.
Lots of guys' name.
Oh. Abram.
Welcome. Hey, if you're hungry, we got cereal. If you're not, come sit down. We're reading the Bible.
Oh, sure.
Abram was 75 years old when he left Hannah.
Try again.
Sorry,
I
I'm
have
late.
no idea.
Haran. Look where the R is.
Oh. Wait, her on?
Well, I don't have much of a twice. But Haran.
Haran.
Thank you. Think of like laughing like ha.
Haran.
First syllable is ha.
Think of it as this. He tried to say Haran.
No.
He took his wife Sarah and his nephew.
There's an I.
Sarai.
Yeah.
His nephew Lot and all his wealth, his livestock and all the people he had taken into his household, and Haran, and headed for the land of
Canaan.
How?
It's hard to see.
Sanan.
Like a cat. Canaan.
When they arrived in Sanan?
Why would it be as S sound?
Okay, look. Take out the A-A-N.
Canaan.
Thank you. Canaan.
Abram traveled through the land as far as Sechem.
It's an SH. What sound does the SH make? So put that in the beginning of the word.
Sechem.
Shechem.
Now this is where it breaks down. The CH is not pronounced ch in this case. It's pronounced k.
Shechem.
Shechem. There he set up camp besides the oak of Morah.
Mora.
At that time, the area was inhabited by Canaanites. I don't know.
Canaanites.
That was really good. Canaanites.
Canaanites. I think he got the hardest verse for him.
Yeah. So when a word ends in ites, you typically just say the first part and then you say ites. So just like the land is Canaan, Canaanites.
But this
Israelites.
they have weird.
Nope.
Yeah, but these are
Nope.
weird words.
If it ends in ites, it's Canaanites.
Americanites. That's what we are. We're Americanites.
Alright, anyways. He leaves.
Wow. We could have summed up that verse really quickly.
I made you a map.
Oh.
Here's Mount Ararat. This is where the ark landed. Here's where the Tower of Babel probably was. We don't know for sure. Here's This is where Abram grew up. And he goes past the Tower of Babel's old site up to Haran. And then God says, just go. Just go. So he goes. And he goes into the land of Canaan, which is this big green blob. It's not that green. I just colored it green.
Now I know why it's called the promised land.
Well, archaeologically, it probably was a lot greener back then, from what we can tell. Not as deserty as it is now.
What happened?
A drought.
It's the shape of the mountains, and coming out of the flood period, it would have had a lot of water in the soil from the flood, and the further it got from the flood, the more the shape of the land took hold, and you get desert. Whenever there's body of water, mountain range, flat, you end up with the desert on the other side of the mountains and green in between the water and the mountains. It happens in California too. We got lucky because our coastal range is shorter, and so we get a valley in between the two ranges of mountains. But then if you get past the second range, desert.
Mm-hmm.
So
They've added desert.
they just don't have two mountain ranges, sadly. They have one.
So, we win. We're smart. I really do think
If the mountains were taller, you could get, rain and rivers just from the height of the mountains. That's what's going on up here. Just taller mountains. Okay. Would you like to read?
this land to your descendants. And Abram built an altar there and dedicated it to the Lord, who had appeared to him. After that, Abram traveled south and set up camp in the hill country, with Bethel to his west and Ai
It's AI.
to the east. There he built another altar and dedicated it to the Lord, and he worshipped the Lord. Then Abram continued traveling south by stages towards the
Negev.
That's what I said. Negev.
Didn't hear that.
Smart.
Alright. Oh, I thought I had the map up. I guess that'll be next. Alright, so basically, he just goes south. God doesn't say stop necessarily, but when he gets into Canaan, God says, okay, this is it. This is the land I'm giving you. But it doesn't say you. Did you notice that? Descendants. It feels like a trap. Back in Haran, God says, go. I will show you the land I'm giving you. And then he gets there, and God's like, this is the land I'm giving your descendants.
You don't get this one.
Now, this really feels like a trap when you realize Abram is childless. So when God says, like, I'm giving this land to your descendants, it's kind of like saying, I have a big fat check for your kids. And you're like, dude, I'm in junior high. I know. You just wait. It's going to be really impressive. Someday.
And the longer you wait, the bigger the check will get. 5,000 years later. When am I going to get this stinking check?
How old do you think he's going to get?
Hey,
He only gets like
you never know.
900.
Who? I'm talking to him. I hope he doesn't live to 900. Like a pile of bones and wrinkles. Terrible.
He's so old, even the bones are starting to wrinkle.
That was good. That was good.
Wait, so who lived to 900? Abraham?
Like the first generations. Not Abraham.
Not Abraham.
No.
Was it
Noah was like the last guy to make it into the 900s, yeah.
Okay.
So like there's a few guys between Adam and Noah. Between Adam and Noah is 10 generations. So there's 10 generations of people. A few of them made it into the 900s.
Would they look older and older? Like by the time they hit 900, did they?
Certain kinds of aging wouldn't have taken hold, or else they would have been dead before then. So certain kinds of aging would have had to have been slower, or else they never would have made it there.
Yeah.
Welcome. Are you at junior high?
Yeah.
Sweet. You've come in late. You have missed half of it. I have barely any voice. It's okay. You're getting kind of a weird service out of it today. If you're hungry, though, we've got cereal and milk. Okay.
You need some milk.
I'm coming off a cold, so I have, like, no voice. So I'm using a microphone, which I typically don't do, especially for, like, 5 people.
At the beginning, we only had one.
That's true. Right at 9 o'clock, it was one kid. So
Yeah.
everyone's been a little bit late today. It's okay.
Except for me. I was here at 7.
Why
Because my dad's on security team.
7?
Hey, I had a really late night. I was in the
I
party
woke
till
No, I know, but like 2 hours early is really early.
I woke up at 8.
Getting here at 8 is like, you might be the first car.
I woke up at 7.
I got up at like,
then I took a
6.
shower for an hour.
I woke
6:30.
up at 8:06. So
The fact that you made it here at all is kind of,
Hey,
amazing.
I'm surprised I got here as early as I did.
Alright, so, just to catch up, we're doing the book of Genesis. We've made it through like Adam and Eve, Noah's Ark, Tower of Babel. Now we're on right past Tower of Babel. I'll give you the map. There's Noah's Ark, where it landed. Tower of Babel. There's Ur. Guy named Abram was born in Ur, moves his dad up to Haran. Today, God says, just go. I'm not even going to tell you where. Abram does it. He ends up in Canaan. That's basically how far we've got.
wait, so how many miles did he get?
It's a lot of miles. I didn't count.
So God's like, you could walk like 20 miles or so.
He's 75, so like, it's still impressive. I don't care if it was 2 miles. Like, he got all of his stuff together, his wife, no kids yet, keep that in mind. All of his livestock, like, portable farm, just gets up and moves.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say portable toilet.
Maybe. I don't know. I think he just pooped outside back then. I don't think he really cared about toilets.
If you have a toilet, you're fancy.
I think you were from the future.
So, wait, you have a time machine?
If they had a toilet, they had a time machine. I don't. I just have a toilet.
Wait, but I thought you said if you have a toilet, then you have a time machine, and you said you have a toilet, so that means you have a time machine, right?
We're talking like 2100 BC.
Time toilet.
2100 BC. If you have a toilet, you have a time machine. Or you're just like an inventor. I don't know.
Who
Or
would
you just
invent
like,
the
or you
toilet?
just like made.
Literally anyone who doesn't like pooping outside, which is probably a lot of
Maybe
people.
we just
Probably
like,
just have like a cup.
Not sure that's a big step forward.
You just poop and throw it outside, and then get a new cup.
Let's stop wasting my limited voice. Okay, so God makes him the promise, and then he makes an altar. And this is something we see all throughout the Bible, all the way back with Adam and Eve's kids. Like, second generation, people have been making altars to God. Noah did it too. He gets off the ark, he survived a flood, they killed everyone else. First thing he does, he makes an altar. So what the heck is an altar? Does anyone know?
isn't it like the place you make a sacrifice?
It is.
It is, but it's not like a point on Google Map. Like, what is it?
It's like,
It's like you build something that you sacrifice something on to God.
Okay, but if I said I'm going to build something and then I tried to sell it to you as a car, you'd probably ask some details about it. So give me the details. What is an altar?
So it's like a pit that you put a fire in, and then you kill an animal, and you toss the animal into the fire or something, or you burn it on the fire.
It's mostly right except for the word pit. The word pit is the exact opposite of the truth. Everything else was right.
A mound or something.
There it is. It's a stack. You make a stack out of rocks. You mix in some wood. And the wood goes in the middle. So it's a raised pit. And then you use wood to make it not a pit. So effectively, it's a barbecue without a lid.
Yeah.
Okay? So you make a rock stack.
God's barbecue.
It's like this tall. And then you make a perimeter of rocks around the top of it. And then you fill in the little bowl you've made up top with wood. Then you lay your animal on it. You light the wood. And now there's a raised bonfire. That's it.
With the animal in it.
With the animal on top. So yeah, it's a barbecue without a lid. That's it. So why was this happening? Why would Abram go, sweet, my descendants can land, I'm going to make a barbecue?
The way you said that was funny, but it's kind of like saying, like Abram was praising God because he didn't think he would have kids. So if God's promising that his descendants will get land, that means he will have kids someday.
It's a really good
So
deduction.
he's all like, "Thank you, God, I get kids." Oh no.
Yeah, later, when Abram is struggling, God promises more specifically, I will give you a child. But not yet. Right here, you're right. It's only inferred. It's just, since he's going to have descendants, he would logically have to have kids. And since he's 75 and has no kids, God is basically promising a miracle. Like, generally speaking, you don't have kids when you're 75. Like, it's not normal. Now, granted, we're pretty close to the flood still. We're only a few hundred years after. People like Noah had kids when they were 500. But Noah lived to 950. Like, that's stupid old. 950, you should not be alive. But Noah did. Noah's kids. He had 3 boys. They all lived to 600 and maybe more. We only actually know one of them lived to 600. We don't know how old the other ones lived. Yeah.
If he was 950, wouldn't he be like top notch smart?
Oh yeah. Yeah, like life lesson smart. Totally. Like, because like Adam lived to 930. Methuselah was 969. Noah was 950. He's the second oldest guy on record. Noah's second oldest. That's really old. Almost no one could ever compete with you. But the other thing you gotta remember is too, you're old. And generally old people who are smart get ignored just because they're old.
Also, they forget things.
Like, the fact that they're smart doesn't make people listen to them. You as a young person, you gotta choose to listen to old people. They talk slower. They get distracted easily. If you're gonna try and get wisdom out of them, you have to be patient.
They're talking riddles sometimes.
They talking what?
Riddles.
Riddles. Yeah, that's true.
Yoda.
It's true. So just because you're smart doesn't mean it helps people, right? The other people who are going to learn from you got to choose to learn from you. So like Noah was around; he was alive when the Tower of Babel happened. No one was listening to Noah. They were listening to some Nimrod. It's literally his name. It's Nimrod.
They had a language, right?
Yeah.
Was it?
Like since humanity began, we had language.
I mean, like, did they have a school back then? Because how they learned?
Ooh, that's different. I don't know. There's like no mention of school at this point.
Because then, like, the family would have to teach the language, but then how could the family know the language?
Because they were taught by their family.
Yeah, but then.
There's only one family if you go back far enough. Like if you go back to Noah, there's one family. You don't need a teacher to teach you things. You just need someone who knows them. Okay, let's just imagine for a second. You're growing up in a family where Noah's your grandpa.
Yeah.
Okay, his 3 sons are your dad. One of them is guaranteed. Okay, so there's literally 3 plus 1 guy in your family, and they're all over 500 years old. Are you gonna like just ignore them? Are you gonna grow up and be like, I'm gonna go find a school? And they're like, there's like 15 people on the planet right now, right? You're not gonna leave and try and find a school. You're just gonna ask them. Or be stupid. I mean, you can pick that. You can choose that.
He's a Nimrod.
Now that, right there, Nimrod, special case, that's like 6 to 8 generations down the line. So,
So he really was Nimrod.
well, I don't know. He invented a religion, so that's, he's not stupid, he's not wise. Not wise.
He's not stupid, but he's not smart.
Wait. If Noah's family was the only one that survived,
Yeah.
and he has 3 children, how the heck did their children have children?
Ooh, good question.
Unless they had it.
Because there was 8 people on the ark. Noah, 3 sons, and they all had a wife.
Oh, I forgot about the wives.
Yeah, I didn't mention them, so it's it's not totally your fault. But yeah, they all had a wife from other families that came with them on the ark. So the bloodline was not like purely incestuous, because there was actually 4 separate women. Although we don't know if Noah had any more kids after the flood. It doesn't say he did. So, but we know his sons did. And they actually mention which tribes, which countries, which people came from those 3 sons. So it's pretty well documented. Yeah.
My only question is, if everybody on the earth right now has come from Noah's family,
Yeah.
wouldn't we all have the same last name? Because isn't it 3
Oh my God.
sons?
That's pretty good. So last names didn't get invented for thousands of years after the flood. Still in Jesus' day, which is over 2,000 years after the flood. Okay, so like flood was around 4,000 years ago. Rough, very rough. Okay. Jesus is about halfway back.
Yeah.
They still didn't have last names.
Yeah, because, like, you'd call after, like, where they're from. Like Jesus.
Well, generally speaking, you didn't even need a reference. You just needed some context. So that's where the last names came from. It went from you always had to state context to this is getting confusing. Let's just make up a fixed system. So originally it was your father or your city. And usually cities were small enough for a long period of history. There wasn't two guys in the same city with the same name. You were the only guy in your town with your name. And if your parents named you the same as someone else in your town, it was either to be mean or to honor that guy. You were actually named after him. So typically he would be dead. And it didn't matter that you had the same name.
What, you mean the parents be mean to the child or to
Yeah.
the guy? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you meant to the guy.
If there's already a Joe in your town and you name your kid Joe, that's just mean. Because now every time someone says Joe, they're like, which one? It's really annoying. So eventually they started saying Joe of Chico. Because their towns were so small, there wasn't two Joes.
I have 5 Joes in my family.
Yeah, that's absurd.
I have a friend that has like 10 Anthonys in his family.
I'm named Daniel after my Aunt Danny. She was for a long time dating a guy named Dan. So whenever we would get together, there was Dan, Danny, and Daniel all in the same house. Which was great because my family frequently calls me Dan. It's fantastic.
Is it?
No. It was not fantastic.
Yeah, no. Full sarcasm.
Alright, anyways. So here's our map. Oh no, dang it, no more map. Map comes next. Keep thinking the map is next. I know. Forgetful. Okay, so would you like to read a chunk?
At that time, a severe famine struck the land of Canaan, forcing Abraham to go down to Egypt, where he lived as a foreigner. As he was approaching the border of Egypt, Abraham said to his wife,
It's like Sarah with an I, so it's Sarai.
Sarai, look, you are a very beautiful woman. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Let's kill him, then we can have her. So please tell them you're my sister. Then they will spare my life and treat me well because of their interest in you.
Alright, now, story on its face is really simple and really terrible. But it's actually more complicated. So, Sarai is actually his brother's daughter.
That's great.
So,
You marry your niece.
literally his niece. But the age difference was pretty big between him and his brother. So the age difference between him and Sarai was 10 years.
Oh.
So like typically your niece is not 10 years younger than you, she's usually like 20.
Actually,
Oh,
not
sorry.
for me. My niece is only 12 years younger.
Well, and sometimes family age differences are so big, your niece could be older than you.
What?
Yeah. Emily's best friend has a niece that's like the same age. And that's just because sometimes parents have kids for like 20 straight years, 25 straight years, they're still having kids. And so like the first kid they had, the last kid they had, they're siblings, but they're a whole generation apart.
Yeah.
So like the oldest kid's kid is the same age as their youngest kid. So like the niece and nephew is the same age as their uncle. It can happen. So for Abram and Sarah, it was like halfway in between that. It wasn't 20 years, it was 10 years. So Abraham and Sarai, remember he's 75, she's 65. Once you get up into that range, it doesn't seem like 10 years is very much, does it?
No.
A 75-year-old and a 65-year-old getting married, it doesn't seem that weird. It's pretty normal. What's not normal is the fact that a 65-year-old woman is so beautiful that he is afraid of being killed for her.
Yeah,
That is abnormal. Now remember, they're going to live past 100, these guys, so they are still very close to Noah in the bloodline. They're 10 generations down. They still have some of those really good genes. They're going to live way longer than normal people. So at 75, they probably look 40s. 65, she probably looks late 30s. based on how old they are when they die, that's like the stretch. So, yeah, she's 65, but she probably doesn't look much over 35. That's still pretty young.
That's pretty amazing.
That was,
Like
that was
she
back
found
then.
the
That was back then. So one more complication though. Hebrew, when you say brother or you say sister, you're not saying brother or sister. In Hebrew specifically, you're saying male relative or female relative.
That's great.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah.
I love it and I hate it. So if you say sister and what you mean is niece, in Hebrew, you're not lying. You are literally saying the correct word. Because she is your female relative. Now technically they are married, and that trumps niece. You should be saying wife. That is a different word. Luckily, the word for female relative and the word for wife are not the same word. So he is lying by omission. It's when you fail to say something. You leave the truth out. Okay, so like, if you say, no mom, I didn't knock the vase over. But the truth is, you shoved your brother and he knocked the vase over when you shoved him. You were lying by omission, right? Because you didn't touch the vase. You didn't touch it. But you're still lying. So if he says it's my sister, and the word means female relative, he's not lying. But he isn't telling the truth either. So he's lying by omission. He's failing to tell the whole truth. So he tells her to lie. He's not just going to lie. He's telling his wife to lie. Here's the map.
Yay.
Would you do that to save your life?
Probably.
This is a very weird question. Would I lie about being married to my wife? Is that the question? Or just lie in general? Because the smaller the lie, the bigger the temptation, the less sure I am I wouldn't do it. But the bigger the lie, the more sure I am I wouldn't do it. So like a lie, like, no, I'm not married to her, I wouldn't do it.
To save your own life?
Not even to save my life. But a tiny lie, oh, it's tempting. It's really tempting. It's harder. If the question is like, did you brush your teeth in the last 30 minutes? I'd be like, yeah. And then they don't kill me, I might do that. I might lie like that.
Yeah.
It feels small. It feels like it's not going to hurt anyone. It feels like there's no repercussions. It's really tempting. But the odds of that ever happening?
It's like,
Why would that ever happen? That would never
A
happen.
terrorist kidnaps you and brings it to your house.
No, it's never gonna.
Leaves
It's
you with
never gonna
nothing.
happen. Okay, so anyways, here's our map again. I added on Egypt. Little arrow. He goes down here, but why? Why did he go down there?
'Cause he can't.
To see a Nile crocodile.
No. Okay, go back. He read it. It's this word right up there.
famine.
Famine.
You needed more
Famine. He needed more food.
Well, my famine close enough.
Yeah. No, you did great. As soon as you realized what we're talking about, you remembered how to say the word. You did good. Okay, so he's in Canaan. God told him to go there. There's a lack of food. What would you do
Trust in God and stay there.
if God says go somewhere and then you get there and there's no food?
I would probably yell.
Now keep in mind, he's been having a conversation with God up to this point. This isn't just prayer. God is literally talking back to him. He is hearing from God when he talks to God.
Talking back to him.
Wait, where did he make the sacrifice?
In Canaan.
Then how did he get the animal if there's no food?
Because he has a flock of animals. But if you don't have food growing out of the ground, your animals will start to die.
Oh.
So it's one of those things where like you see the future and the future is death. So you try to plan around that. Does that make sense? Because like your animals will die faster than you can eat them if there's a famine going on. They'll last for a while.
Not unless you kill them all at the same time.
Well, but then they'll rot.
That's why they needed a freezer.
Thanks, Weston.
Can't you just find some cold water ice cube
or you
in
can
it.
pray to God
Hey, now,
for
And
snow
some
and ice.
salt.
a few hundred years later, they actually invent ice manufacturing in the desert.
In the desert.
In the desert, there's a really interesting phenomenon that you can't do in areas of the world where there's a lot of moisture in the air. You need dry air to do it, and the phenomenon is known as dark sky cooling. And what you do is you actually leave a very large, very shallow pool of water facing a cloudless, moistureless sky, and in the middle of the night, the water will freeze over.
Why?
But you don't really see this in nature because in the desert, it's really hard to get water to just stay there.
You think?
It just evaporates. So you have to like save the water in the day and then at night pour it out. But the other thing is the pool has to have super dark black stones on the bottom. So you have super dark black stones on the bottom, really shallow, and water facing a cloudless, moistureless night sky. And the night sky will rip the heat out of the water so fast it will freeze all of it.
Like instant.
Yeah.
Within like 30 to 45 minutes.
Okay.
So then you have to harvest that ice and you have to store it in insulated environments. So they built like pyramid style stone buildings where the stones are like, ridiculous thick, but they did it with an air gap and then another set of stones.
So that it's super cold.
Super insulated, not cold, insulated. Then you keep putting ice in it night after night after night, and it keeps lowering the temperature of the inside room until eventually you get a freezer. Ice in the desert.
Wow.
But they didn't have it yet. It happened a few hundred years after Abram. Isn't that cool?
Oh, no. That's cold.
Wait.
It still works
If
today,
it evaporated
but you have to go to
it
like a desert.
Wait, if it evaporated it so fast, wouldn't that just leave a bunch of minerals?
No, it doesn't evaporate it in the night.
But what if you put yourself?
It evaporates in the day when the sun's up.
What if you
So
put yourself
at night,
in the pool?
how
Like,
does it freeze?
oh,
It's
Well, if you put yourself in the water. first
hard to
you freeze in
explain
there.
quickly,
Okay.
put a fish
but
in there.
infrared light moves heat very efficiently, and the sun produces infrared
What
light.
if you put a
So in
bunch
the
of
daytime,
animals in there?
We get heat out of the
Make
sun.
them stay.
So if you can find a way to convert the heat in water, just like the normal room temperature heat, into infrared light, then you can shoot the heat out of the water. So what you need is a stone under the water that reflects infrared light. And it will literally launch the heat out of the water.
Obsidian.
So
As
what-
long as there's no infrared light in the sky. So in the daytime it doesn't work. But in the nighttime it does.
What about
Why,
the
what if you
why
put-
does it have to be clear sky? Clear.
Because the moisture reflects the infrared back at you. So if there's moisture in the air, the second the infrared leaves the water, it leaves the water, it
It goes
reflects
back
right
down.
back. So you need dry air.
So what if
Wait.
you put yourself in the
Isn't that weird?
shallow pool?
What if you put like a fish in the pool?
Or yourself?
Then it would freeze.
Wait, that would
Stick
take
your
out-
hand in the pool.
That would
Oh.
take out all your body heat. What if you're in the
But
desert?
but the infrared can't shoot straight through you.
What?
Infrared. The kind of light that comes out of little remote controls for TVs and stuff. And the sun.
Why don't they just make a huge remote and aim it towards the
Well, funny you should say that. They've actually tried to develop a coating you can put onto solar panels so that solar panels jettison heat and they naturally cool themselves.
Oh,
It's pretty cool stuff.
okay.
Totally brand new science using that ancient science.
Can we continue this?
So he heads down to Egypt, and it's because he has no food. But really, what should he have done when he ran out of food, or started to get scared? Because legitimately, he hasn't run out of food yet. He just thinks he's going to run out of food. He should pray. God's been guiding him across the countryside. At some point, if something goes wrong, he should just bring it to God and be like, God, what should I do? And maybe God would say, go to Egypt. But he didn't even ask. He just ran because he was scared. He heard Egypt had food. That's how he went. That's not smart.
It's like, okay, God, I'm here. I'm gonna go now.
Yeah. God literally told him to go here, and instead he went here. Just, yeah, not cool. Okay, so immediately bad things start happening because he has to now account for his own plan. He has to come up with a plan. He has to make the plan work. He has to do all the things. When God's in charge, God's making the plan, God does all the things, and you just have to do what he tells you to do. You don't have to do everything, you just have to do the one thing he tells you to do. Now he's outside God's plan, he's got to do everything. Would you read next?
And sure enough, when Abraham arrived at Egypt, everyone noticed Sarai's beauty. When the palace officials saw her, they sang her praises to Pharaoh, their king, and Sarai was taken to his palace. Then Pharaoh gave Abraham many gifts because of her: sheep, goats, cattle, male and female donkeys, male and female servants, and camels.
So, not good. The lie, this is my sister. It worked.
Backfired.
Oh, well, but it worked. He thought, if I say it's my sister, they'll be nice.
That was also backfired.
Well, they were nice.
Not too nice.
A little too nice.
They wanted to keep her. Like, I want to marry this woman now.
You know what? It's great if people treat my wife nicely. It's not great if they court her.
What?
That's what this is. This is courting. This is trying to impress her so they can marry her. Not good.
Look at all this stuff I have. I got some gold. I got some sheep. I have some goats.
It's not good.
I've
So-
got the guitar.
Abram was not smart. He invented a half-good plan. This is what humans are really good at. This is my current thesis. If I ever became a professor or wanted to write my PhD thesis, my thesis would be humans are incredibly good at solving the one problem they're worried about. And they're incredibly bad about thinking about any other problems. We're always capable of solving one problem, the one that's right in front of us. But we can't think about any of the problems that come after that one. And so we always invent technology, solutions, plans, choices that work for the one thing we're staring at. And then lo and behold, it's horrible. Our plan is horrible because it comes up with like 4 new problems. And we didn't think about any of those.
It's like,
We only thought about the one problem. Abram's like, if I go there with a pretty wife, they'll kill me. That's a problem. Okay? That is a real problem.
Go there with them.
But there's
This-
other solutions. Lying about her not being your wife. It's going to come with some new problems, Abram.
like,
What? She's not my wife. She's my brother's wife. Go
Yeah,
home instead.
she's married to someone not here. So you can't have her, but you can't kill him because he's not here right now.
it's like,
You can just keep lying. Just keep lying.
it's like,
That'll get you there. Eventually, you'll finally get to that point where you've lied so much there are no more lies that will fix things.
it's like, I'm getting fat, therefore I'm going to exercise and fast. And then after that, you're hungry, so you eat some Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah. He could say all kinds of things. She's sick. I know she looks pretty, but man, she's got a crazy disease. You don't want that. And then they're like, oh,
Then
why are you with her? Don't you guys share a tent?
No.
Not anymore. Now he doesn't get to sleep in the same tent with his wife. Like, you can just keep lying. Just keep lying. Just keep lying. But it's still going to make things worse. It's not going to make them better. It's only going to fix one problem at a time. And every time you lie, you make at least one new problem, sometimes plural.
Why can't she just say she doesn't want to marry them?
That's not how it worked back then. We're talking like 4,000 years ago, guys.
You're talking
Women are
about-
property back then. It was
Yeah.
not a good time to be a girl. It was not a good time.
The father married their daughter to get money.
Yeah, well, and at this point, if the dad's not there, it's the brother's job. At this point, if the brother's traveling with the sister, the assumption is that's because the dad's dead. That's the assumption. So the brother's looking out for his sister, therefore it's his job to do all the things dad would have done, like finding her a good husband. And all these gifts are the normal process to convince the man, be it the husband or the brother, that you should let her get married to him.
Okay, but what if the father's dead,
Yeah.
but the brother has a child, and the brother dies, so then would it be his?
It's the closest related male relative. And there's a whole structure back then of like first, second, and third place on the family tree,
What if
like
it's,
to the nth degree.
what if it's my dog?
Your dog.
That's not a male relative, man.
Your dog.
It's a pet. That's silly.
Yeah, the dog's gonna say, "Hey, you can marry my owner."
So this is where it gets tricky. This isn't just some rich dude. It's their king. So he thinks he gets to do whatever he wants. So what he does is he gives Abram more gifts than anyone should get for any trade of woman, and then he just takes her. He doesn't ask. Abram doesn't say, yes, you can have her. Pharaoh's king. He gets what he wants. So he just gives the biggest, fattest dowry ever, and then just takes the woman.
Yeah, you get cheap goats.
It's not good.
Female donkeys.
So at this point, Abram hasn't said, please take her. Pharaoh just takes her. And Pharaoh thinks he's okay to do that because in their culture, the king just gets to take people. Oh, you're my servant now. Oh, you're in my army now. Oh, I'm going to marry you now. And he only gave a gift to make Abram happy. He didn't do it because he was legally required to. He's the king. If he wanted to legally, he could just kill Abram and take Sarai. He thought he was being nice.
Yeah.
So if I was king, I can tell you, you're in my army.
Well, see, this is the thing. As king, you can, and it was legal, but you may or may not make people happy. So you would do things to try and make people stay happy so you didn't have an uprising. Because you're always trying to fight the uprising, where all the people get together and kill you and your army. So you would try and A, have a bigger army than the people. But B, if everyone in your army uprises against you, you're dead anyways. So you had to pay people in your army. So you force them into your army, but then you give them a good paycheck. It kind of shakes out.
You're fine.
Kind of shakes out. And then they're happy, but you've got a big fat army. It's the same thing that's happening here. He's going to take Sarai. He's going to do it. He knows he's going to do it. So how does he make Abram happy? He just gives him a bunch of stuff for free. Here you go. So Pharaoh thinks he's being nice. He doesn't think anything's wrong.
I'll trade you gold and all this for your sister.
And this is a big problem. When you lie, you create possibilities for other people to do wrong without meaning it. Simplest example. If you lie about who did what, you can get someone else in trouble, even though they were innocent.
I didn't break it, he did.
Boom. They're going to get in trouble. You've now done something evil to that person, but not only are they getting in trouble and that's evil on them, but think about this. You're now doing evil to the person in charge, who is now wrongfully punishing someone. They're guilty of wrongfully punishing someone, but they didn't even know they were doing it. So now you've wronged two people. Who is he wronging here?
Pharaoh.
And his wife. Big time his wife. This
Well,
backfired
go
biggest
back.
of all. on
I
his
don't want
wife.
to be with you anymore. You wrong.
Now remember, Abram asks Sarai to lie with him, to lie the same as him. So Sarai's in on the lie, but she's doing it for Abram, and now it's costing her. She's got to go be with some king. We don't know what he is like. He could be a nice guy, he could be a jerk. He could be handsome, he could be ugly. We have no idea.
Let's go with ugly and jerk.
He could be an ugly jerk. So, not great. Okay, on top of that, she's already married. It doesn't matter if he's handsome and nice. She's already married. She doesn't want to be with him. So many things are wrong with the situation, and it's all Abram's fault. What happens next?
He dies.
The
Your
wife
turn to read.
ate the chicken.
But the Lord sent terrible
Flying.
plagues upon Pharaoh and his household because of Sarai, Abraham's wife. So Pharaoh summoned Abram and accused him sharply. What have you done to me? He demanded. Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister? And allow me to take her as my wife. Now then, here is your wife. Take her and get out of here. Pharaoh ordered some of his men to escort them, and he sent Abram out to the country along with his
Out
wife.
of the country.
Possessions.
It's of the country.
Oh.
That's
Of
important
the
though,
country.
because remember why he came here.
Hey, wait, but he still has all his coats, his cattle,
Oh, yeah.
male and female donkeys, female, male servants, and
Oh,
his
yeah.
coats and cattle and whatever else.
He's richer than he came in.
He's richer than the Pharaoh
But why did he go to Egypt?
to get
To
food.
get food and stuff.
Because there's a famine back in Canaan. And so the punishment, get out of my country, is get out of the only place that has food right now. The punishment isn't just leave. The punishment is you can go starve in a desert, my friend. That's the punishment. That's pretty harsh. But it all could have been avoided. He didn't have to lie.
Whoa.
So, here's the deal. Pharaoh jumped to the conclusion that she was already married.
Isn't
Isn't that interesting? It doesn't say she told him.
no, he jumped.
He just went straight to that conclusion. The people back in that day, whether they believed in the one true God or not, were superstitious and religious to the max. So when they got a brand new wife and immediately they and their whole household get sick, they assume that whatever they just changed that day caused the sickness. They don't assume like we do now with medical science, like, oh, I must have been around a sick person. Someone must have got me sick. They assumed I did something to anger God.
You did.
Does that make sense? That was like the natural assumption back then. So he takes her as his wife. It's like the wedding night. He's about to go on honeymoon with her.
Oh, jeez.
He's about to, and he gets sick. And then he checks with the servants, and they're all sick. And she's not. And he's like, oh,
His jaw.
something's wrong. I angered the gods, but she's not sick. That means it's her. Something about her is what's making us sick.
Wait, but what?
See, that's the complete opposite of what science would tell us to think now.
But why? Couldn't
Right?
he
If she's not sick, she's the only reason you're not sick. It could be literally anyone else that's sick. It couldn't be her. She's not sick. She has no symptoms. She couldn't have got us sick. But that's not what they were thinking back then. They were thinking, I made God mad.
But couldn't he also jump to the conclusion that he is already that no, she's already married to a different guy, not just Abraham.
Oh, yeah, not him specifically. I think that's just logic on his part. If there was a lie about why she was married, or about, a lie about her being married, then the question is why? Why lie? And so in this case, Abram got buku stuff, and no one pestered him. So it made the most sense to lie if it's his wife. That was the most logical answer. It doesn't mean Pharaoh was going to be right, but it was just the best guess. So, and he was right. So, anyways, Pharaoh guesses this because of his religiosity, his superstitious nature. He goes straight to, I angered God. What did I do today? Well, I got married. Well, there you go. It must have been against God. Why would God be angry with me for marrying her? Because she's already married.
Didn't the Egyptians, wasn't their god like Ra?
Well, yes and no. Yes, historically, they've had this whole pantheon of gods, but you gotta remember what period we're talking about. Egypt hasn't existed for more than like
Couple years.
5-6 generations. They're not a very big country. They're not a very old country. This is back when Egypt started. So their religion, it wouldn't have developed much by then. It's possible they still knew about the one true God. Everyone came from Noah's family only like 10 generations ago. Noah's family knew full well there was only one God. He caused the flood. They knew all kinds of stuff about him. His rules, what he liked, what he didn't like. So we get new gods forming as soon as we get to like the Tower of Babel, and that was like 8 generations. So yeah, I mean, Egypt's not that old. They probably don't have that many gods. It's very possible at this point they're still worshiping the one true God. You gotta give it time before they get to Ra.
A
about the ark? Did it have internet connection?
Really? Really?
Did it have Wi-Fi?
You have Wi-Fi on your guitar?
Yeah, I actually did.
Alright, guys, that's all we're reading for today. But what I want you to take out of this is that Abram, as much as he is an example, he gets held up later in the Bible as like this man of great faith. Sarai, she gets held up as a woman of great faith. And you know why?
Nope.
Because I stuck with God most of the way.
Okay, here it is. This is so weird, okay? Abram is held up as a man of great faith because when God said, I'm going to give you a kid, he believed him. Even though he was 75. When God said, go, get out of your country, leave the most of your family behind, and I'm not even going to tell you where to go. I'll just tell you when you get there. He went.
Smart of him.
When Sarah was held up as a woman of great faith, do you know what they said about her? She didn't think they were going to have kids. So it wasn't that she believed God that they were going to have a kid. She was 65 years old and had never had kids, and they've been trying for years. She thought for sure God was wrong. And then, like, a few years go by, and she's even older, and God reminds them of the promise. You know what she does?
Yes.
Kids.
She laughs. She laughs at God. Now she's like behind the tent wall. She's like in a tent. God's outside the tent. She doesn't think God's gonna hear her, which is stupid. God totally hears her. But yeah, God says you're gonna have a kid, and she's like even older than 65. And she laughs. So that's not why. She's held up as a woman of great faith because God had said from the beginning of time, wife, honor your husband. And when Abram said, we're going to Egypt, I want you to lie about being my wife, Sarah didn't argue. She said, if that's what you want. No, yeah, thanks. She said to Abram, okay, if you really think that's best, I'll do it for you.
Well, she kind of had no choice.
So
did she?
literally, and this is the crazy part, she didn't do that because she trusted Abram. The Bible tells us she did that because she trusted God, and God said, honor your husband. So she followed her husband into a bad idea because she knew God said to honor him. And the Bible says, you know what? Kudos. That is more faith than most women have. Most women, when their husband has a bad idea, you know what they do?
They laugh in their face.
They tell their husband, it's a bad idea. And you know what? I'm okay with that. If my wife tells me, you know, Daniel, that's a pretty bad idea, I'm okay with her telling me. But this is the cool thing. When you honor someone because God said so, and the reason is not because they deserve it, the reason is not because you like them, the reason is because God told you to, God keeps track of that. Think about that. You honor your parents because God told you to honor your parents. If you do it even when they're being stupid, if you do it even when they're wrong, God's keeping track. He's literally watching and going, they were being stupid, but you still honored them. Good job.
Wait, what if they're being stupid? You don't know they're being stupid, and
Then
do
you were
it
being
anyways.
stupid with them.
You know what? That's not even the point. The point is if you honor them because God said so. They could be wrong and you could know it. They could be wrong and you don't know it. They could be right and you know it. They could be right and you think they're not.
Wait, what? I didn't get any of that.
There's two conditions. Them being right or wrong. You thinking they're right or wrong.
Oh, okay.
It can go either way.
I'm going with.
There's 4 situations there.
I'm going with.
There's both up, both down. One up, the other down. Swip swap.
That's
I'm
it,
going
you're
with.
It doesn't matter.
Or 3.
It's 4.
None of them.
1, 2, 3, 4. It's 2 times
How
2.
do you have both up?
They're right, you think they're right.
Yeah.
So you could obey your parents because you think they're right, or you could obey your parents because God told you to. And that's completely different. If you do it because you think they're right, you get no credit.
What if they do something right, but you think it's wrong, but you do it anyways?
If the reason is because God told you to, then you get credit. It doesn't matter whether they're actually right, and it doesn't matter if you think they're right. It only matters why you're doing it. Why are you honoring them? Why are you obeying them? If the reason is because God said so, you get the credit.
What if
God is keeping track.
What if you do what your parents do? I mean, what your parents told you to do, but not because the reason is because God told you to obey your parents.
It's still a good thing to do, but you're not going to get special credit. No extra credit.
What's the special credit?
Well, in Sarah's case, it was very cool. She gets mentioned in this giant list of men. She's like the one woman on the list. In like all of human history up to that point, they're listing like all the people with the greatest faith, and it's her. She's the only girl on the list. Okay? Now you get one-on-one with Jesus in heaven. There's a special judgment for Christians. There's like the great white throne where God tells sinners, you never repented, you never asked Jesus to forgive you, the punishment is hell.
Oh,
Bye. Christians don't even show up at that judgment. That's like a big group judgment. Everyone's watching. Your whole thing is there for everyone to see. It's awful. Christians get a separate judgment. It's called the Bema Seat. We get to sit down one on... I know it's a weird word. It's a non-English word.
Bemis?
No, Bema.
Bema?
Bema. It's not English.
Bama.
So,
What is it then?
Greek.
Latin?
Greek.
Oh, close
Oh.
enough.
Yeah, like pre-Latin. So, Bema Seat, judgment. Jesus sits there one-on-one with you. It's a private meeting. And you get told by the perfect creator of the universe what you did right in your life. And he's congratulating you. He's complimenting you. He's talking you up one-on-one. Your creator. And then he rewards you for it. He gives you perks in heaven. He says, here, this is for you because of what you did right. And he doesn't hold over you like, but here's all you did wrong. He doesn't do that. He doesn't say like, he doesn't say percentages, you did 50,000 things right, but that was only like 1%. He doesn't do that. He just tells you what you did right. But it's only the things you did for him. If you just did it to be nice, if you just did it because you thought it was the right, like, smartest thing you could do, no extra credit. He's only going to reward you. He's only going to compliment you. He's only going to hold you up and say, good job, when you did it for him. That's it. So the reward in heaven is not for being good. The reward in heaven is based on your motivation of heart. Were you doing it for God?
But
Were you
what
doing it for Jesus?
What if you were doing it for both?
And that's totally fine. That's great. Do it for both. But if it's just because you think it's smart, just because you want to impress your parents, just because you want people to like you, no credit. He says that's still good, but all of your reward comes in this life. If you're just doing it to be good to your parents, like you want them to like you, cool. There is a reward.
Yeah, I don't care.
You will have your parents like you. That is the reward. You get no heavenly, no eternal. Just the reward here. And that's still good. It's just not as good. Yeah.
What if you don't do anything for God? Wait, would accepting him be doing something for God?
Yes, because
You mean like repenting, asking for salvation?
Yeah.
That is an act of faith. I don't know if it's for him. I think it's mostly for you. But it is still faith. You're still putting your faith, your belief into him.
So you're either going to hell or you're getting one or more good things.
That's it. That's it.
choose.
Are you going to get to heaven and the only reward you get is you get to stay? Or are you going to get to heaven and Jesus has a list of rewards?
I like the list of rewards.
So that's it. That's basically it right there. Will your motivation in life be, I'm doing it for God.
What would be
I love God.
What would be the rewards though?
That's for the perfect creator of everything to let you find out when you get there. He tells us some of them. One of them is what you get to wear in heaven is a direct reflection of what you did for him on the earth. So your clothing in heaven is not like a daily wardrobe choice. Your clothing in heaven is literally a reflection of what you did for him in this life. So you could be the poorest guy on this planet, for 70 years and then you die. You could live in rags and smelly, awful clothing for 70 years. But if you did things for God in this life, when you get to heaven, your clothes are going to look nicer
Nice and smooth.
than everyone else's for the rest of eternity.
But there's not going to be any jealousy, or there's not going to be any, like...
No. Instead, they're going to look at you and go, whoa, man, good job. You obviously were living for God.
Whoa, man.
Congratulations.
But,
Not jealousy.
but there's
Congratulations.
No, there's no pride either.
No. So it's literally just the reward of, this is what Jesus gave me. Have you ever got a coloring picture from like a 3-year-old as a present? It doesn't matter what it looks like. It matters that they wanted to give you a present. Sometimes that's what it's like. God may give you a better present than the next guy, but what you're going to be thinking about in your perfected heavenly mindset is, God gave me this. It's pretty cool.
Hey guys, God gave
God gave me this. That's going to be really cool. I don't care what it looks like. It's going to be cool. So, I can have the worst clothes in heaven.
What if he gave you a trash
It's still going to be from him.
What if he
I'll be
gave you
thrilled.
a trash can lid?
At least it'll be unique.
A
I
trash
got a question. Why would he give you a trash can lid?
Thank you. That's a much better question.
Why would he give something that
Hey
you
guys,
can't
God
wear?
gave me this.
Oh, here's a trash can lid for your reward.
Okay, so back to what we learned today. Abram, man of faith, trusted God that he was going to get a kid. Trusted God enough to leave his home. But he had moments.
But he did not trust God and just went bye-bye.
Yeah. This is a lesson for us. In our life, we can be trusting God 90% of the time, and it's still going to be really bad when we stop. That's just how it is. It's going to be. And God didn't have to, make it bad. You notice what God actually did?
Made it better.
He made it better. He put a plague on Pharaoh so that Abram's lies could stop. So that Abram's suffering of his wife in some other man's house could stop. God didn't punish Abram. Abram was punished all by himself. His own consequences to his own actions were his punishment. So this is the lesson for us. When we walk off from God and we work on our own plans apart from Him, and we're like, I got this. I'm smart. I'll figure it out on my own. God says, all right, have fun. Let me know when you're done. It's not going to be good for you, man. And that's just the truth. God doesn't have to actually reach out and punish you. He could. He can do it if he wants. He doesn't even have to. When you go off on your own, you are going to naturally be second best at best. His plan is always best. So the best you could possibly do with your own plan is second best. That's the best you could do. And usually, you're not even doing that good.
Why aren't you doing the third best?
You're probably like 100th. Your own plan is so far behind from God's plan. It is so rare to even get to second best, but you're never going to get best. You can never outplan God. He knows the future. You can't do it. So, when, and I say when, not if, when you falter in your faith, you start doing things on your own, it will hurt a little. It will hurt in different ways every time. It will have consequences. And sometimes it's not just you, it's going to hurt. Sometimes it hurts those close to you. For Abram, it was his wife. Sometimes it hurts totally outside people. It'll hurt your teacher at school. The ones you're not even friends with. It'll hurt other kids you barely know. But it's going to have consequences. And the point is, learn from it. And then when you realize what the heck is going on, go back. Recenter yourself. Pray. Abram, when he leaves, he doesn't recenter all at once. It kind of takes him a few half steps. Where he moves towards God, but not all the way. So he's going to have a few more falls before he gets there. We'll see him next week and the week after. But in these falls, we'll learn as he does. doesn't pay to try and make up your own plan. It hurts to try and make up your own plan. And it takes much less energy to seek God and say, God, what is your plan? Please reveal it to me, than the energy it takes to keep on having to remake your own plan around all the mistakes and the consequences that come out of your last plan. It takes way more energy to do it on your own. That doesn't mean God's way is easy. Sometimes God's plan is go live in a desert where there's no food. That's not easy, but God knows it was going to be the best thing for him. He should have just done it. And we'll see throughout Abram's life, no matter how desert, no matter how broken the place God puts him in, he always prospers. Why? Because God wanted him to prosper. That's it. There's no logic to it. There's no sense. There's no science. God just said, oh, good. You're right where I wanted you. Here, take presents. That's literally it. It doesn't make any sense. You shouldn't be able to make more food while you're living in a desert. Your flock shouldn't grow when you're living in a desert. That's totally stupid. But when Abram does it, it happens. Yeah.
Have you ever read the full Bible? How many times? 2 times? The whole
2.5.
entire thing?
He did 2.
He's halfway through.
I'm still reading it. I didn't quit at 2.5.
Yeah.
Isn't it just like the same thing, just in different words?
The whole book?
Yeah. If you
No.
Are you reading different Bibles?
Oh. Well, okay, put it like this. Have you ever read a book just for fun?
Yeah.
Have you ever read it again later?
Yeah.
Why?
It was fun.
Because you liked it?
Yeah.
Do you think I'd be a pastor if I didn't like it?
Yeah.
No, I actually like the Bible. I'm not sure if you guys like reading the Bible. It's worth reading. The more you read it, the more you like it.
You know,
The less you read it, the less you like it.
when I read the Bible, it feels like time is slowing down.
It is.
And then, but when I'm reading like a book that I like, it feels like the time is just gonna pass.
Yeah. If you read it enough to the point where you like it, it does that. You lose track of time. You have to actually read it enough to start liking it. Part of not liking it comes from not knowing what the heck it means. So if you read it enough to understand it, it becomes really easy to like it. But if you don't get it, I don't know why you would like it. I don't know who would like it. If you don't get what you're reading, why would you like it?
Because you get self-confidence because you think you're getting smarter.
You think, but you're not.
Alright, so, faith, good. You're not going to have perfect faith. It's not going to happen. Notice when you're planning your own life and then quit. Go to God, ask Him for the plan, do that instead. When you do things for God, He gets to reward you in this life and in eternity. That's it for today. Let's pray. Thank you, God, you don't ask for perfection from us. Thank you that our examples are people like Abram and Sarai. They make mistakes. Thank you, Lord, you don't ask us to be free of mistakes. You just ask us to go back to you, to let you be in charge. So help us, Lord. Help us to quit when we put ourselves in charge and to find our way back to you quickly. Reveal to us your plans. Make them known to us. We actually have an idea of what you want out of our lives. Help us, Lord, to put you first. To not quit when it's hard. to not find ourselves in that desert place where we think we can't survive and run. Help us, Lord, not to do that. Help us to stick it out, to trust your promises. We ask for all these things in your name, Jesus. Amen. I love you guys. See you next week. If you're hungry yet, you can have some cereal. Otherwise, have a good week.
See ya. Oh wait, no, I'm not leaving.
2 phones. Whose phone do I have?
Samuel. Mine. No. Yes, I won.
It's you?
No, that's fine. I got both phones. Yay.
The ultimate win.
What?
I'm gonna win this time.
Yeah, well, this is bold. You wish you were dead. That's what I feel. Shoot it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, solids. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Aw. Wow.
Boy. Yeah.
Ooh, so much.
Wow. Oh!
Holy moly. Aw, so close.
Watch this shot right here.
Nice enough.
Fail. That's what you are. Here, watch this. Trick shot.
Aw.
Dead ball. And okay. What was that?
Shit.
Dude.
Aw.
I'm gonna play my turn.
Huh?
Good die.
I know what to
Would you rather be A, frozen in a giant block of ice forever, like you won't die, or be tossed into lava and have the pain of burning, but you never die forever? So, be really hot for the rest of your life or be freezing cold for the rest of your life? Which one? You want any cereal?
Huh?
You want some cereal?
No. My aim is insane. Triple Q. Got no. That's all. You man.
Can you do three?
Huh?
Here, I'll toss one in.
Tyreek's hold.
Nick. If anyone will notice. Yay. Daniel's probably gonna be like, okay, who did that? I'm gonna say Nate. $100, nobody notices it. Or somebody's gonna run their face right into it. BAM! Oh.
Or someone's gonna notice it.
What's that one game we were playing last week? The playing.
Oh, that one. I'd rather play Smash Bros.
Well, we don't have time for that. Smash Bros. Wait, it's in there?
Yeah, someone found it. Someone found it.
Oh.
killed myself?
Weston, did you do that? Huh? What?
You put the pool cue in the ceiling?
No, it was in the double.
No.
Means. No. Hello?
Stop spamming. Yay! I'm coming back in here! You cannot beat me!
got killed.